In the brutal calculus of combat, there are two fundamental missions: to engage the enemy and to bring everyone home. For every warrior whose job it is to run towards the sound of the guns, there is another whose sacred duty is to run towards the wounded. This is the profound and paradoxical role of the combat medic, a figure who must embody both the heart of a healer and the soul of a fighter. They must be capable of taking a life to defend their own, and seconds later, using their training with gentle precision to save one. Now elevate that role to the most elite, high-stakes environment imaginable. Place that medic in the back of a blacked-out helicopter, flying at treetop level through enemy territory in the dead of night. Task them with keeping the world's most advanced special operators alive. This is the realm of the Special Operations Flight Medic, a member of a brotherhood so small, so skilled, and so courageous, they are legends even among other heroes. Within this revered fraternity, one name is spoken with a unique blend of awe and affection: Sergeant First Class Marcus V. Muralles. To the pilots and crew of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the legendary Night Stalkers, he was simply Doc Muralles. He was more than a provider of medical care. He was an anchor of calm in the vortex of chaos, a quiet force of competence whose very presence could lower the heart rate of an entire helicopter full of hardened commandos. His story is one of a relentless pursuit of excellence, of a life dedicated to service, and of the ultimate sacrifice made on a desolate mountaintop in one of the most infamous battles of the Afghanistan War. To truly understand the weight of his legacy, we must journey back to the heartland of America and trace the path of a young man from Indiana who was destined for greatness. Marcus Vinicio Muralles was a son of Indianapolis, Indiana, a city at the crossroads of America, built on industry, community, and a resilient, unassuming pride. He came of age in the late 1980s, a period of immense global change. The Berlin Wall was crumbling. The Cold War that had defined global politics for half a century was thawing, and a new, uncertain world order was beginning to emerge. He graduated from high school around 1990, a time when the nation was riding high on its victory in the Gulf War, yet the path forward seemed less clear than ever. For a young man in the Midwest, the future held many possibilities. But for Marcus, a quiet call to service resonated stronger than any other. Shortly after graduation, he enlisted in the U.S. Army. This decision is noteworthy for its timing. Unlike the wave of enlistments that would follow the national trauma of September 11th, Marcus's choice was made in an era of relative peace. It was a commitment born not of vengeance or reaction, but of a deep intrinsic desire to be part of something larger than himself. He entered an army that was downsizing, refocusing, and defining its role in a post-Soviet world. It was into this environment that he took his first steps on a path that would lead him into the very heart of the nation's most elite fighting forces. His journey began, as it does for all soldiers, with the rigors of basic training. But his true calling started to take shape at Fort Sam Houston in Texas, the historic home of Army medicine. It was here he trained as a 68W, a combat medic. This was far more than a simple first aid course. It was an intense, immersive education in trauma care where he learned to manage catastrophic bleeding, treat blast injuries, administer IVs in complete darkness, and perform life-saving interventions under the simulated stress of continuous gunfire. He learned that his mind was his most important medical tool, the ability to remain calm, to diagnose, and to act with precision when chaos was all around him. After mastering these foundational skills, he went to airborne school at Fort Benning, Georgia, earning the silver wings of a paratrooper, proving he could arrive to the fight from the sky. This combination of medical knowledge and airborne capability set the stage for a career in the high-stakes world of special operations. Marcus's first major assignment was a clear indicator of his potential. He was sent to the 75th Ranger Regiment, one of the U.S. Army's premier special operations units. For a young medic, this was a trial by fire. The Rangers are a brotherhood forged in hardship, bound by a creed that demands they lead the way in every mission. Serving as a Ranger doc meant he had to be as physically tough, as mentally resilient, and as tactically proficient as the infantrymen he was charged with protecting. He had to carry the same heavy ruck, endure the same brutal marches, and fight with the same ferocity, all while carrying the extra weight of his medical gear and the immense responsibility for the lives of his comrades. But for a man like Marcus Muralles, meeting the standard was never enough. He was driven to exceed it. He volunteered for and completed the U.S. Army Ranger School, a grueling 61-day leadership course renowned as one of the toughest in the world. Here, he was pushed beyond the limits of hunger, sleep deprivation, and physical exhaustion, learning to lead soldiers under the most punishing conditions imaginable. Earning the Black and Gold Ranger tab was a definitive mark of his grit and leadership. His pursuit of knowledge was relentless. He knew that in special operations, the more skills you possessed, the more valuable you were to the team. He sought out the most challenging schools the Army had to offer. He went to SEER School, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. This is where soldiers are taught to survive on their own in the wild, to evade capture, and, if captured, to resist interrogation and escape. It is a deeply psychological and physically brutal course that breaks many, but forges an unbreakable will in those who complete it. Marcus's success at SERE proved he had the mental fortitude to withstand the worst the enemy could throw at him. He further specialized, becoming a sniper observer medic and earning his combat diver qualification, skills that made him capable of operating in virtually any environment, from a hidden sniper's perch to the dark depths of the ocean. By the end of his tenure with the Rangers, Marcus was no longer just a medic. He was a seasoned special operator, a combat-tested leader, and a master of a dizzying array of advanced skills. He had built a reputation as a quiet, utterly reliable professional, the kind of man you wanted by your side on the worst day of your life. In 2001, Marcus set his sights on the next echelon. He volunteered for what is arguably the most demanding and secretive aviation unit in the world, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, Airborne, the Night Stalkers. Their motto is, "Night Stalkers don't quit," and their mission is to fly the nation's most elite special operators, SEALs, Delta Force, and his own Ranger brethren, anywhere in the world, under any conditions, with unerring precision. To join their ranks is to become a master of flight in the most dangerous circumstances. The selection and training process for the 160th, known as Green Platoon, is an unforgiving crucible. Candidates are subjected to intense physical and psychological screening. They must demonstrate not only their technical proficiency, but also the unique mindset required to be a Night Stalker, an obsession with detail, an ability to perform complex tasks under extreme stress, and an unwavering commitment to the mission and the men they support. Marcus, with his impeccable record and quiet confidence, was a natural fit. He was selected and began his training to become a special operations flight medic. This was the pinnacle of his profession. As a flight medic with the 160th, his office was the cabin of a specially modified Black Hawk or Chinook helicopter, often flying at night without lights, just feet above the terrain. His patients were the most highly trained soldiers in the world, and his work was performed in the most austere and violent environments. He trained to provide advanced trauma care while being tossed around in a rapidly maneuvering aircraft, often under enemy fire. He learned to manage multiple critical casualties at once, to perform emergency surgical procedures with limited equipment, and to be the calming voice of medical authority in the midst of utter chaos. From 2001 to 2005, as the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq raged, Marcus deployed an incredible 7 times. He became one of the most experienced and respected combat medics in the entire special operations community. He was eventually promoted to flight lead medic for Bravo Company of the 3rd Battalion, a position of significant responsibility. It was during these years that his legend grew. The stories from his fellow Night Stalkers all paint the same picture of a man so preternaturally calm, he seemed to radiate a force field of composure. In a vibrating, noisy helicopter cabin, filled with the tension of an impending mission, Doc Muralles' deliberate, focused movements as he checked his gear had a steadying effect on everyone. He was the constant in an equation of variables. This quiet confidence was not arrogance. It was the product of relentless preparation and a deep, abiding faith in his own ability to handle whatever came next. The summer of 2005 found Marcus and the 3rd Battalion of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment operating in one of the most dangerous places on Earth, the Kunar province of Afghanistan. A rugged, unforgiving landscape of soaring peaks and deep, isolated valleys along the Pakistani border. It was a hotbed of Taliban and Al-Qaeda activity. It was here, on June 28th, that a fateful mission codenamed Operation Red Wings would be launched. The objective was to locate and neutralize a high-level militia leader named Ahmad Shah, who was responsible for a string of attacks against U.S. forces. The first phase of the operation involved the insertion of a 4-man Navy SEAL reconnaissance and surveillance team onto the slopes of a massive mountain named Sautalo Sar. Their job was to observe and identify Shah and his men, but the mission went wrong almost from the start. The SEAL team was discovered by local goat herders, and soon after, they were ambushed by a much larger force of Shah's fighters. Pinned down on the treacherous terrain, the 4 SEALs found themselves in a desperate fight for their lives, outnumbered and taking heavy fire. An urgent call for help crackled over the radio. Troops in contact. Back at the forward operating base, the response was immediate and decisive. A quick reaction force was spun up. This was not just any rescue team. It was a force comprised of the best America had to offer. 8 Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 10 and 8 Night Stalkers from the 160th SOAR were scrambled to go to the aid of their brothers. Their transport was a specially modified long-range MH-47 Chinook helicopter, call sign Turbine 33. Aboard that helicopter, preparing for what he knew would be a dangerous and difficult mission, was Sergeant First Class Marcus Muralles. As the sole medic for the entire rescue force, the weight of responsibility on his shoulders was immense. He knew the SEALs on the mountain were likely badly wounded. His actions in the moments before takeoff speak volumes about his character and foresight. While others were checking their weapons and ammunition, Marcus was focused on his medical gear. He wasn't just packing his standard aid bag, he was thinking ahead. According to eyewitness accounts, he took the time to secure extra medical supplies and, crucially, additional bags of blood and plasma underneath his seat in the helicopter. His reasoning, stated with a grim and focused clarity, was that they would need it as soon as we hit the ground. This small act reveals the heart of the man. In a moment of extreme pressure, his thoughts were not on his own safety, but on his ability to save others. He was anticipating the worst-case scenario and doing everything in his power to prepare for it. He was a healer, first and foremost, and he was going into a fight armed with every tool he could carry to bring his brothers home. The flight to Sotalosar was a tense, high-speed journey through treacherous mountain passes. As Turbine 33 approached the last known position of the embattled SEAL team, the pilots skillfully maneuvered the large helicopter into position for a fast rope insertion. But the enemy was waiting. As the Chinook slowed and entered a low hover, it presented a large, momentary target. At approximately 4:05 p.m., a Taliban fighter, concealed on the high ground, fired a rocket-propelled grenade. The RPG, a relatively simple but brutally effective anti-armor weapon, struck the helicopter near its rear transmission. The impact was catastrophic. The complex machinery that controlled the massive rotor blades was instantly destroyed. Turbine 33, mortally wounded, lurched violently and then plunged towards the steep, rocky terrain below. It slammed into the mountainside and exploded in a massive fireball. All 16 American heroes on board, the 8 Navy SEALs, and the 8 Night Stalkers, including the selfless and courageous medic, Sergeant First Class Marcus V. Muralles, were killed instantly. The downing of Turbine 33 was a devastating, gut-wrenching blow. It was the single deadliest day for U.S. Special Operations Forces since the Black Hawk Down incident in Mogadishu in 1993, and it remains the largest loss of life in a single event for the naval special warfare community. The news sent a shock wave of grief that rippled from the front lines in Afghanistan to the home bases at Fort Campbell and Virginia Beach, and finally to the quiet towns across America where these men came from. For the families, a knock on the door from a uniformed casualty notification officer brought a nightmare from which they would never awaken. In death, the full measure of a warrior's service is often recognized. For his extraordinary bravery and ultimate sacrifice, Marcus Muralles was posthumously awarded the Purple Heart. This was added to an already formidable array of decorations earned over a distinguished 15-year career. His awards included the Bronze Star Medal with a V device for valor during intense combat in Iraq, the Meritorious Service Medal, multiple Army Commendation and Achievement Medals, and 4 awards of the Air Medal, one with the V device for heroism during flights under direct enemy fire. His uniform also bore the coveted Combat Medical Badge, signifying that he had personally engaged the enemy while simultaneously performing his life-saving medical duties. His chest of ribbons and his collection of qualification badges, Senior Army Parachutist, Air Assault Combat Diver, and Flight Crew Wings, were a silent testament to a man who never stopped learning, never stopped pushing himself, and never shied away from the most difficult challenges. But a man's legacy is more than the medals he wore. It is measured in the love he shared and the lives he touched. Marcus Muralles was a devoted husband to his wife Diana and a doting father to his little girl, Alexandra, who was just 2 years old when he died. His family was the core of his being, the light that guided him home from the darkness of war. The loss of his presence, his strength, and his love left an irreplaceable void in their lives. His sacrifice is forever immortalized in stone and bronze. His name is carved onto the hallowed Night Stalker Memorial Wall at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, alongside his 7 brothers from Turbine 33. It is also inscribed on the Indiana War Memorial in his home city of Indianapolis, a permanent reminder of the hero his state gave to the nation. But his most vibrant legacy lives on in the institutions created to honor his spirit. Within the 160th SOAR, his memory is celebrated annually through the Doc Muralles Flight Medic Award. This is not merely a plaque. It is the regiment's highest honor for a flight medic, given to the individual who best exemplifies Marcus's incredible combination of technical mastery, grace under pressure, and profound dedication to his patients. It ensures that his standard of excellence remains the benchmark for all who follow. Back in Indiana, the Special Operations Association sponsors the Sergeant First Class Marcus V. Muralles Memorial Scholarship, providing financial aid to students pursuing careers in nursing and emergency medicine. This fund is a direct extension of his life's work, empowering a new generation of healers and ensuring that his selfless spirit continues to serve the community. Yet perhaps the most powerful insight into his character comes from the words of those who flew with him. Major Corey Goodnature, a fellow Night Stalker pilot who was himself tragically killed in Afghanistan years later, once tried to explain what made Marcus so special. He said, "If you were wounded, you prayed Doc Muralles was coming for you. He never gave up, not in the dead of night in Kunar, not even in the burning wreckage of a helicopter." Think about the weight of that statement. From one elite warrior to another, there is no higher praise. It speaks to a level of trust that transcends friendship or professional respect. It is a declaration of absolute faith. It means that in the worst moment of your life, when you are broken, bleeding, and fighting for every breath, the sight of Doc Muralles would be a beacon of hope. It meant that he would fight for your life with as much ferocity as you had just fought the enemy. The story of Sergeant First Class Marcus V. Muralles is a profound testament to the quiet professionals who serve at the highest levels of our military. He was not a man who sought the spotlight. He was defined by his actions, by his unwavering competence, and by the profound calm he brought to the most terrifying situations. He was a healer who willingly went to war, a warrior with a physician's touch. His life, though tragically cut short on a desolate Afghan mountainside, was one of immense purpose. He lived by a creed of service, service to his country, service to his brothers in the Rangers and the Night Stalkers, and above all, service to the family that was his entire world. His legacy is etched not just in stone, but in the lives he saved, the medics he inspired, and the memory of the quiet, confident man who was the very best at what he did. He was Doc Muralles, and he will never be forgotten.